Israel pounded the Gaza Strip on Thursday, Washington's envoy was in Tel Aviv to discuss how its ally could better protect Palestinian civilians in its war on Hamas militants. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and spoke with other officials, including the country's defense minister, about possibly transitioning to what the White House called lower-intensity military operations in Gaza. Here's White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby.
One of the things that Jake did talk to him about was progress in the war and where the Israelis think it's going to go. He did talk about possible transitioning from what we would call high-intensity operations, which is what we're seeing them do now, to lower-intensity operations sometime, in the near future. But I don't want to put a timestamp on it. I think you can understand that the last thing we'd want to do is telegraph to Hamas what they're likely to face in coming weeks and months.
At an event in Bethesda, Maryland, Reuters asked U.S. President Joe Biden if he wanted Israel to scale back its assault on Gaza by the end of the year.
I want them to be focused on how to save civilian lives, not stop going after Hamas, but be more careful.
Meanwhile, in the Rafah area of southern Gaza, dozens of wounded people were taken to the hospital on Thursday after an Israeli airstrike targeted a house. Paramedics said 6 were killed in the airstrike and dozens were injured, including women and children. Israel launched its campaign in retaliation for a rampage by Hamas, whose fighters killed 1,200 Israelis and seized 240 hostages in a cross-border raid on October 7th. Since then, Israeli forces have bombarded the coastal strip and laid much of it to waste, with nearly 19,000 people confirmed dead, according to Palestinian health officials, and thousands more feared buried under the rubble.
تمكنت اليوم من التواصل لديكم عبر الأقمار الصناعية. الأوضاع الميدانية في قطاع غزة صعبة جدا، لا تزال أوضاع النازحين هنا في مستشفى الشفاء سيئة جدا، أوضاع إنسانية سيئة جدا بصدق وبأمانة، إلى حتى هذا
We actually have an intimate dialogue with the American administration on our operational issues, and I tend to feel that some of these remarks going back and forth have to do with other issues which are dealing with the day after. But all in all, the focus right now should be our clear outright victory against Hamas, so that we can change the trajectory in the region towards peace and inclusion.
Feel good the way he deals with the war. I didn't realize you meant to extend.
But I think one can see that in the northern part of Gaza, one can see the horizon, and we can see the end of that campaign in the non-foreseeable, we can see the end of that campaign and not far away in the next few weeks. What I want to urge is against just saying two-state solution. Why? Because there's an emotional chapter here that must be dealt with. My nation is bereaving. My nation is in trauma. The cup of poison that Israelis have seen has been filled. In order to get back to the idea of dividing the land or negotiating peace or talking to the Palestinians, etc., one has to deal first and foremost with the emotional trauma that we're going through and the need and demand for full sense of security for our people. So I would make a difference between Israeli boots on the ground and who manages the ongoing affairs of Gaza the day after. I'm not involved in the nitty-gritty under my position. There is the Prime Minister, the War Cabinet, it's a National Unity Cabinet. There are people who are dealing with it on a daily basis with various potential partners, definitely the United States administration, which we welcome their support and involvement deeply into this vision of offering peace in the region. And therefore, I would differentiate between the immediate and what the horizon is. I truly believe in a horizon of peace. I believe it's feasible. But before getting there, we have to deal with some core issues. The behavioral mode of our partners. And how do we secure the safety and well-being of Israelis and Palestinians? These are the key basic questions before we get to the solution.
هاي يا سيدي رفح الوسطى. There are quite a number of issues that United States can do. One is to call upon Israel to stop the war. United States has been calling upon Israel to avoid killing civilians and so on. You cannot avoid killing civilians if you continue the war. And therefore, it was a pity that Washington actually vetoed a United Nations Security Council resolution that has to do with a ceasefire and so on. So we need immediate ceasefire. Second important issue, those who have not been killed by Israeli bombardment, they have been starving to death. And those who have not been killed either way, they have been dying because of their wounds. So we need international aid to get into Gaza, not only and limited to Rafah crossing. There are 5 entry points to Gaza that United States can pressure Israel to allow international aid to go into Gaza from these entry points. United States has been calling, and the President of United States has been calling for a two-state solution on the borders of 1967. Kamala Harris in her phone call also with our President has reiterated the same thing. Every American official who arrives here to meet with us, they again repeat the same thing, that United States is for 2 states. Now that United States has talked the talk, we want Washington to walk the walk. Meaning that we need specific measures to implement the 2-state solution, not only believe in 2 states. So for us, there are a number of steps that Washington can do. For example, 1, United States can allow the admission of Palestine as a member state in the United Nations. 2nd, United States can bilaterally recognize Palestine on the borders of 1967 in accordance with the policy of the administration. And 3rd important issue, United States can take the lead on the implementation of the 2-state solution to mandate the Security Council to put together a timetable for Israel to end its occupation to the Palestinian territory, putting Israel in a situation that can deliver any of what Americans have been requesting Israel to do. So therefore, it is my hope that American administration should move this policy from carrots to Israel to non-carrots. This is something where it can be effective, because obviously if American officials telling us we have been talking to the Israelis, we have been discussing this with the Israelis, and without results, so you need to employ other measures that can bring results for us. Wadi Gaza is not the Nile River or the Amazon.
שומע אותי? שומע טוב. אתה יכול לספר לי מה אתם עושים כרגע? מה עובר על הכוח?
Leat Benin is safe in Egypt. She's crossed the border. I talked with her mother and father.
שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה. אמן. שעשית לאבותינו, שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם, בימים